Well, hello there, I'm Détroit. Today I'll be drawing an antique restoration shop. I chose this setting because I really want to make a crowded drawing with a ton of details, and in such a shop you're bound to find a lot of tools which you can put almost randomly all over the canvas. This drawing in total took me 7 hours. It's quite a long process, and so it will be split into 2 videos, the next one being uploaded a week after this first part that covers only 2.5 hours of the drawing process. That's a good reason to subscribe, I think. I should say, maybe flashing image warning? I'm zooming and moving around the canvas a lot. I know it can be a bit frustrating to have only half of the process, but as I said in my last video, this month will be really hectic for me because of work, and I won't be able to draw. Since this drawing is quite long, splitting the video into 2 was my best option to keep giving you something to watch. And there are a ton of things I want to say about this drawing, so there's definitely enough material for 2 videos. A lot of things to say, starting with this sketch. This is actually my second attempt at sketching this. I wasn't fond of my first version, where the character wasn't facing straight away from us and the desk was level. For composition reasons, I preferred to angle it slightly. You know what? Let me show you. I did film the first attempt. Let's pause this one and cue the failed sketch. This is 20 minutes of sketching in about 20 seconds. The only thing I really liked about it was the character's face, but more on that a bit later. As you can see, I have a few elements that I'll keep in the other version, like hammers, clocks and other tools. However, I made them too big. I also had the intention of making a clock repair shop, but I was quickly running out of ideas for things you might need to repair clocks. This improved sketch takes a larger point of view, both with regards to the scene, including a larger perspective, but also with regards to the shop. This isn't just a clock repair shop anymore. I like the sound of the word antique, so this is what I chose, but really it's a bunch of random tools and a few dismantled clocks. As a reference for this new sketch, I looked at the old sketch, on which I had scribbled a list of things I wanted to show, like a soldering iron, pictures on the wall, cases of bolts and nuts, etc. This isn't my only reference though. There's an artist I discovered on Instagram whose art I really like. It's Cards Dalmo. Their illustrations are magical, colorful, cozy, full of feeling. Here's a bunch of pictures I really like. You can go check out their page, it's worth it. Since I was planning on making a crowded drawing, I chose to take inspiration from them, mix their style with mine a little bit. This is why the sleeping guy has no nose. I always draw people with noses, and I wonder what it looked like if I purposefully didn't. I like the result. It adds to the comics look of it. One thing you can take note of is that in Carl Dalmo's art, everything is hand-drawn, and by that I mean all the curves are natural. The straight lines aren't perfectly straight, and the taper of every line isn't smooth and uniform. I have done drawings of this sort of scene with a bunch of details and perspective, a lot of time relying on a perspective grid and using the very helpful Shift key to make straight lines. Today I really wanted to get this approximate feeling of doing everything by hand rather than Shift, or using a polygonal lasso tool. It makes it more natural and less artificial. Even during the sketching part, I'm already thinking of the tone and vibe I want to give this artwork. I want the atmosphere to be cozy, warm and relaxing. The tones will be mainly bordering fleshy tones, oranges, browns and reds. This is why the main elements of this scene are wood-based. The clocks are made of wood, the tool handles, the desk, obviously the chair, and even the pieces of wood on the bottom left corner are made of wood, if you can believe that. By placing wood elements all over, I'm ensuring that the tone will be coherent for when I color it. That will happen in next week's video, but that's just to say that rather than haphazardly drawing random things, I'm drawing elements that make sense from an aesthetic standpoint. To contrast with the overall wood vibe, I obviously need a counterbalance. Something that will contrast with it, so colder tones, still coherent with the subject, and more importantly, a bit less present than wood. So what's the opposite of wood? That question doesn't make sense, but my answer would be metal and glass. Metal can easily be rendered bluish or greenish, so colder tones. It also works a charm in this repair shop setting. Coincidentally, my work as an experimental researcher involves a lot of tools and metallic parts from different metals. What I use on a daily basis are wires, leads, soldering irons, screws, nuts, spacers, bolts, clamps, of all sorts and sizes. If I'm being honest, take away all the wood and the broken clocks and this is straight up my workbench. It is less aesthetic in real life, I'll admit. This is also why I didn't go full clock repair station. I know nothing about clock parts. I believe it's more convincing if I know what I'm drawing. Like, look at the clamp on the right side of the dude's leg. Doesn't it look cool? If I didn't have that on my own workbench, I wouldn't have been able to draw it. Lastly, the best way to crowd a desk is by putting different size items together. What I consider bigger elements are the open drawer, the two big clocks, the wall panel, the hanging shelves, and the tray shelves on the bottom right. With that, we have medium elements, like the two gears stacked on the tray shelves, the box with my name on it under the screwdriver rack on the wall, the screwdriver rack itself, the soldering iron, the clocks on the wall, and so on. To finish the vibe, a lot of smaller items come garnish the scene, with the screwdrivers, the pliers, the screws and bolts, and the small cylinders. These last ones, I don't even know what they're supposed to be. Maybe pencils? Files? It doesn't matter, they don't need that level of detail. They just look good in the middle of it all, and make it crowded. I also purposefully added nonsensical elements, just to make the picture interesting, like the strange thing with wheels on the left of the wall panel, or a coat hanger on the shelves, or even my triangular logo as a ruler above the coat hanger. With all of that in, you can look at the drawing longer in order to figure out what it's supposed to be. The line art is now almost over and I forgot to tell you what brush I used. After studying the Carl Dalno style for reference, I figured it was the best option to use the most basic round brush with 100% opacity. Apart from very minute variations, the size of the lines is always the same. I reduced the impact of pressure on the size of the brush stroke without fully blocking it. With a full line art over, the fact that no area of the canvas feels overly crowded or undercrowded shows that I sketched it well enough in the beginning. This is a solid line art. It's like a fun coloring book page. It's up to the color work to make it even better. This will be the topic of next week's video, coloring this mess and rendering it in an aesthetic way. That is the best reason to subscribe, to ensure you see the video come out when it does. If you want to see a sneak peek of the fully rendered picture already, you can also visit my Instagram at d3_sd, since I've posted this picture at the same time as this video. Twitter works too, by the way. Like the video and leave a comment with your questions if you have some, and I'm excited to see you in the next video. I'm D3, and here's a teaser for the rest of the artwork. Bye!